Hey guys, I've made a video today on planching. It is the first part in a series of planche videos that I'll be making to take you from the planche lean all the way through tuck planche, straddle planche, and onto the full planche as well. In this series, we're going to be going over everything from the basics on how to incorporate scapular movements into your push-ups, how to properly position your body for the planche, and also how to build strength to get you where you want to go with your planching. Throughout our journey, we're going to be using things like resistance bands and parallel bars, just to name a few. Notice the different heights. So firstly, what is the planche and how do we perform it? The planche is a bodyweight skill primarily performed on the ground, parallel bars or rings, and it's where the person holds himself up parallel to the ground in a horizontal position using nothing but their hands and their body. Now, you would have seen this over the years if you've ever watched gymnastics. You would have seen this on the rings, and you've also would have seen it if you've watched any sort of calisthenics content at all over the past few years. So today we're going to go over the basics of how to lean, how to incorporate the scapular position, and what we actually want to be doing with our body when we perform a planche. So the start of your journey can be a little bit confusing and quite frustrating as well. Our main focus is that we're getting some straight arm conditioning, and that's going to be through the likes of accessory work and leans and things like that. Also some scapular stability and shoulder strength. Yes, we need a strong core. The core is not as immediate as the shoulder and the bicep conditioning. Now, planching on the ground, P-bars and rings. Easiest for most people is going to be on low parallel bars. You can get these from Pull Up and Dip Official, and you can also get this high set from Gold Coast. They're local to me. These are some premium stuff. I will link all of the equipment that I use in the description as well. So firstly, we've got leans and push-ups, and that is where we're going to start our planche journey. P-bars, we want to be aiming towards shoulder width apart. That is going to be the best width to start with. From there, you're just going to go in and out roughly of your shoulders to see what feels a bit stronger. To find your shoulder width apart or roundabout, we're just going to place the inside of the P-bar against our elbow, and then our fingertip will be the other side. So that is simply like that. That's our shoulder width. For me personally, I like to go just outside shoulder width. I feel like I have a little bit more room to get into position with the shoulders and the arms and the body. Push-ups, a standard push-up, okay, we're going to keep an open chest, and we're really focusing on chest and triceps, I guess, for the push-up. We're always keeping the chest open, and we're not really focusing on protraction. It's just a neutral shoulder position, and we just sort of come down and push back up. With calisthenics, scapula is important. Scapular stability, scapular mobility, and scapular strength is very important. Just by simply adding a little bit of extra range in those push-ups, we can actually start building strength from day one with our push-ups. So that is going to be when we come down, and then when we push back up, we're going to push through the chest. Okay, so if we split that up into two different parts, it's going to look a bit like this. So normal push-up, okay, calisthenics push-up, calisthenics, normal, calisthenics. We can start by separating the movement, and then over time we can incorporate it into one fluid movement. So that's going to be coming down, and when we push back through, we want to be pushing through the chest and pushing those shoulders in front of our chest. We start off blocky, and we can over time make it more fluent. So that's the push-up, and whenever we do our push-ups, try and aim to do your push-ups like that. Now, planche lean. I say these together because we can use them together in conjunction with each other as well. A planche lean essentially is when we are starting in the push-up position, and then we're trying to lean forward so that we can get our center of mass over our hands more. In the push-up position, our load, our center, right below the shoulders, but our center of mass is in our waists, roughly. So we're trying to get our waists over the top of our hands. There's a lot of different things to determine how far you're going to need to lean with your planches, because at the end of the day, leaning in a planche is what we are trying to avoid. We're actually trying to actively push out of our lean, have our lean reduced as much as possible. We need to aid it by activating our body in a certain way. So just quickly across the board, it's going to be external rotation of the whole arm, including the shoulder, depression of the shoulders, so pulling them down, protraction of the scapula, so pushing forward, driving inwards, so pulling the shoulders in, hollow chest, sucking the chest up, hollow core, sucking the core up, open hips, keeping the hips open, driving the glutes in, posterior pelvic tilt, quad engaged and driving back, toes pointing, calves flexed, legs extended. So that is the planche positioning. Now, the amount that we need to lean to get into our planche is going to be determined by all of those factors and how strong each of those activations are. So I always like to think of a planche as an electrical closed circuit full of resistors. Each activation is a resistor in the circuit. Higher the resistance, the lower the activation. The lower the resistance, the higher the activation. So if your activation is stronger, there's going to be less resistance, so it's going to be easier for you to hold that planche. But then if you've got lower activation strength, it's going to be a lot harder for you to perform the planche, and you're going to need to compensate with other activations. So if your shoulder strength is weaker, you're going to need to compensate by piking up the hips and or bending the arms, or both, and vice versa. So it's crucial that we are on top of our activations, and we're also taking note of which activations are weaker and then working on that specific one to make that stronger. So we're trying to keep all of our activations nice and strong so that we can perform our planche a lot more effortlessly and more effectively. So preparing our planche. When we push into a planche, okay, we want to think of it like a tennis serve or a rugby league penalty or something like that. It's a ritual. When you see these people serve in tennis, or when they're going for their kick at goal, some of them do some crazy things, some of them do some just very normal things. The point is they're getting themselves into this mindset. We do it in planche as well. What we want to be doing, getting our body ready for the planche and activating properly, so that all we've got to do is just push forward, get our hips over our hands, and then just lift our legs up, and we can be in the planche. When we go to start activating, okay, I always start at the push-up position because we're at our strongest there, and we can activate and get the most out of our activations from there. So essentially what we want to be doing is just loading up for our planche and then leaning into it. We don't want to be thinking too much in our planche. We just want to be using our energy to perform the skill, not to think about if we're doing it right. We want to be gripping the bar, okay, nice and tight. Arms are going to be stacked against gravity, so we want to be stacking this wrist on the elbow, on the shoulder, all on top of that bar. From there, we're going to give it a slight inward crank. Now we want to give it this inward crank because we want to start creating some tension. Planche as a whole is a full body tension. We use specific tension points in our body that we can really gain strength and power from, and that's how we hold our planche. So one of our tension points is going to be in our wrist. We grip the bar, stack our wrist nicely, okay, and then we give it a little inward crank. Now that inward crank is also going to help with pushing the bar like that. So we've got our nice grip, we're inward cranked. We're going to externally rotate our arms from our wrist all the way up to our shoulder. Now watch what happens when I rotate my shoulder. Almost does like a natural depression and starts wrapping around and into my body from the back here. So we want to double down on that. We want to pull the shoulders down at the same time. So we're going to externally rotate and pull the shoulders down. We're going to squeeze the tricep really tight. We're going to squeeze the bicep and the forearm really tight to hold this elbow in position and keep it stable and strong. We're going to squeeze our tricep to lock it into our lat. When we've done that external rotation, we've pulled the shoulders down, we want to get up onto our feet and we want to push through our chest and try and push the ground away, almost as if we're trying to get our shoulders underneath our body and then driving into each other. So external rotation, squeezing everything, depression, pushing into that protraction through the chest, all right? And then now we're ready to lean. So from here, we want to lean forward, okay? And as we lean forward, we want to keep thinking about activating more and keeping on top of that planche, okay? So we're in position, we're ready to go. And then we just lean forward. As we lean forward, we're compressing our wrists more. So what we need to do is we need to actively squeeze the back of the P-bar as if we're trying to do that. So we're trying to resist the lean everywhere, resisting it with our hands and we're resisting it with our shoulders, because as we lean forward, we're not letting ourselves go like that. We're just allowing it to happen. So we're actively pulling our arms down, which is what's happening in the lean, because we're starting here and we're leaning forward. So our arms are going down. So we need to resist it and just let it happen as much as it needs to and not just rest down onto it. So leaning forward, squeezing the back of that bar, pulling those shoulders back. So that's our upper body. When we're engaging our core and our chest, I like to use the cue of exhaling, and I find it is one of the best cues to get your body into that right position. Just a little bit about that. If we inhale, we are creating an open chest. So we've got a nice, big, proud open chest. When we try and protract, it's almost like we're pushing against that open chest. So what we want to do is we want to close the chest. So if we exhale, everything sinks. We want to elaborate on that. We want to keep pulling it in. As we exhale, we just pull the chest in and we pull the core in and up. Now when we pull that in and up, we're hunching our shoulders forward. That is essentially starting our protraction. So when we add that external rotation and the actual push and drive inwards, what's happening is our lats are firing up, they're wrapping around our body, and they're trying to keep everything tight as long as you pull inwards with the external rotation and the depression and the protraction. So exhale is a big thing, okay? We're going to use that as we start our lean, okay? And we're going to time it so that our full exhale is at our maximum lean. That's going to look a little bit like this. Getting into our grip, nice and strong, external rotation, depression, protraction, inhale, exhale. And now here, I can hold this, okay? It's tight, but I can breathe through it and talk. Now that we've got our upper activation sorted, we're doing that all on the push-up position, and then we're leaning into it. We've got our core and our chest positioned, okay? We've exhaled, we've got that all in nice and tight, sucking in, shoulders pushing forward. Now we've got the hips. This is a little bit confusing because it seems as if it's working against other parts of the body, but all it is it's cancelling out. If you need to get to here, instead of using one body part to go all the way there, you use one body part to go halfway, and then you use the antagonist side to come the other way. So that's essentially what's going to happen in our hips, and that's going to be another tension point as well. Exhale, sucking in the core, sucking in the chest, pushing forward, pulling in, rotating out, depressing. Okay, all of that, all nice and tight, locked into position. Hips need to open. If you're not sure how to open the hips or an effective way to do it while you're in a planche lean, then there's two good ways. First way is heels together, toes apart. That's going to essentially open, spread the knees apart and open up the hips and allow you to push in. And the second way is also not splaying your feet apart, trying to touch your two pinky toes around the back and together. And that's also going to give you a nice open hip position. Along with all the hollow chest, hollow core, pushing forward, rotating out, depressing, pushing forward, pulling in, we want a posterior tilt in our pelvis, and we also want push by the glutes in. So that push by the glutes in is going to be essentially like overextending your hip. So you're going to get a little bit of tension inside on the front of your quad and on your butt cheek here. That tension point is what we want to hold and keep nice and tight. So when I say working against each other and bringing antagonist muscles together, that is involving the hips and keeping them in an extended position, because the core is sucking up that way, the legs are tight and squeezing back that way, and the hips are pushing in this way. So all we do is we bring the legs back half, we bring the hips forward half, and then we bring the core back half as well. And that's going to keep ourselves nice and straight. It's going to cancel out, and we're not going to be having to do all the work with one side. We can do half the work with each side and then meet it in the middle with the glutes. So now that you've got an understanding of how to position yourself for the planche, all of these activations that I've told you about, they're going to determine how strong your planche is. If one of those activations is a little bit weaker, then the other activation will need to be stronger to pick up the slack of the weaker activation. So ideally, we want to be keeping a strong activation across the board. So that wraps up today's video. Please leave a comment down below. Let me know how far you are through your planching. Make sure to like and subscribe.